Hey you, yeah you, do you like Excel? No? Well, me neither. But what if I told you that I can add colors to your Excel sheet? And what if I told you that I can add sci-fi? Oh, what is that? You came here without knowing that this game wasn't a glorified Excel? And you're a little bit dumb? Well, you're lucky, because point number 1, I have over 550 hours in this game, and I, too, am a little dumb. So I can explain everything to you. And point number 2, I like my man a little dumb. So let me give you a complete guide of every basic thing you will need to know about Stellaris, trying to keep it as easy as possible by giving you one piece of information at a time. So, where do we start? You may think that on the play button, but no! We are going to start on the shop page. Because while it may seem that this game is $40 or equivalent currency, or whatever price you have paid for it, it isn't. You'll see this game was developed by Paradox, and that means that it has more DLC than I can remember, with a whopping 18 DLCs as of the making of this video, so you will need to understand two things. First, while the game is absolutely playable without DLCs, they can make the experience a lot more complete. And second, if by any chance you become addicted to this game, like me, you will lose a lot of money paying for them. So what do I recommend doing? Buy the game whenever it's on sale and buy 1 or 2 DLCs with it. So which one to buy? Utopia, without doubt. But if you want a quick recap of what every one of them brings, lithoids, plantoids and humanoids are 100% the worst, as you will only want what they bring if you are a competitive player, which if you are using a guide for dummies then you aren't. Toxoids, aquatics, necroids and synthetic tongue bring the same as the other 3, but they also bring unique mechanics that can make them worth it, like the quest to search God, the ability to drown your enemies, the ability to sacrifice your enemies, and everything machine related. First Contact, Ancient Relics, Distant Stars and Leviathans give your game more juice. In specific, the ability to infiltrate societies that don't know what a will is yet, archaeology, basically everything that you have seen on sci-fi movies, and big scary space monsters. And finally, the big ones. Utopia gives you basic megastructures and the ability to ascend, Apocalypse grants you the ability to make your power fantasies come true, Megacorp gives you more megastructures and the ability to declare the Amazon Space Empire, Federations, this is pretty self-explanatory, Nemesis allows you to spy and destroy the galaxy, Overlord to tread harder on your subjects, and Galactic Paragons lets you customize your leaders, and awakens hidden feelings for space twins. So just for the record, I will be making this tutorial with the following DLC enabled: Galactic Paragons, Federations, Ancient Relics, Apocalypse, Utopia, Distant Stars and Leviathans. Let's hit play, shall we? Okay, first screen, what do we do? Don't panic, your gamer training sure works with this one. Exit closes the game, settings lets you customize your experience, and load game loads games. Multiplayer and cooperative are only for people who, unlike you and me, have friends, so hit up new game and let's start. Okay, what does all of this mean? Pretty simple. Here on the right, you have 3 points of interest: random, great new, and this list of empires. Random grants you a randomly generated empire to play with, great new lets you make your own personalized empire, and in this list will appear future countries that you save from the create page, as well as some predetermined empires that Paradox has put for you. This little button from here allows you to change the spawn setting from an empire. You can choose between allowing it to randomly spawn, prohibiting its appearance on your games, or to forcefully spawn them. Now, if you click on an empire, you will see this little page. Don't panic, it's pretty simple to understand. This is your name, this is your flag, this is your species, this is your leader, this is your planet, and this is what your ships look like. This part shows you info about your government, the government type, its civics, which is something like what principles they go by, and your ethics. We will see all of this in more detail later. This part tells you about your species and its traits, and here you have a briefing on your history. Now, you could use a predetermined empire, but all the fun of Stellaris is making your own custom stories, so select create new and let me guide you through the process. First of all, how does your species look? As you can see, you have a good variety of portraits to choose from, but if these weren't enough, you can always buy one from the species pack. In this tutorial, we are going to go for the most basic of all, the Roman Empire. So our aspect will be human. In case you are curious why there are 2 different humans, these are the old ones and these are the new ones. Now, what's our name? In this case, it's pretty easy, human. Here you can enter your custom empire history, and if you want, here you can choose if you want your species to be of one gender only or gender neutral, because Stellaris says MB people exist. Here you have a lot of name list for how you want your empire names to sound like, but don't worry. You can basically rename everything in-game. As we are making the Roman Empire, we are going to select a specific name pack for them. In this page, you'll need to select your species traits. This number represents how many points you have to spend, and this other how many traits you have left. It isn't mandatory to bring it to 0. Traits are divided in 3 categories: Good ones, which will cost points and give you advantages, negative ones, which give you disadvantages and more points to expend, and non-selectable, which you will be granted automatically by the game when you meet some requirements. Today I will choose one negative and two positive traits. Bear in mind that once you have researched the right technologies, you will be able to change your species traits. Now is the time to choose how your homeworld is. In our case, it's just Earth. So we choose the Solar System and call our planet Earth and star Sun. On the city aspect, you have the liberty to choose some cosmetics, like the background room for your leader or how your cities will look. Now we reach the most important part when creating an empire, its origin. Here you can choose how your people made it to the stars. Maybe they just came along and researched the right technologies, or maybe some higher power has put them in their current position. I recommend that you read all the origins that you have available and select the one you think goes better with your empire. But if you want to learn the game, I recommend Prosperous Unification. It's the most simple, but also one of the most powerful. The next step is deciding your government and ethics. This is made in 3 steps: ethics, government type, and civics. To select the ethics, you have this very useful ethics wheel. There are 8 ethics, each one having its counter ethic, hence the wheel, and each one having a moderate or extremist version. In the middle of the wheel, there is the Gestal Consciousness, which is basically the absence of ethics. This option is only accessible through the Utopia DLC. The ethics are militarist and pacifist, xenophobe and xenophile, egalitarian and autocratic, and materialistic and spiritualist. You can select 3 moderate ethics or an extremist and a moderate, and you can never select opposite ethics. Depending on which ethics you choose, you will have access to one or other government type. Democracies choose leaders every 10 years, oligarchies every 20, dictatorships when the current leader dies, and empires have a clear succession line. Every ethic and government gives you different bonuses. And finally, depending on which type of ethics and government you chose, you will have a number of civics to select. You can only select 2, but with certain technologies you will be able to add another one. Civics are very important, as some only give you minor bonuses and others completely alter the game. I would recommend reading through all of them, but the easiest to choose for beginners are, in my opinion, functional architecture and mining corps. Your ethics, government and civics can all be changed once you start the game, although remember that this works like a pyramid. If you change the bottom, in this case ethics, you will have to change the top. As we are playing as the Roman Empire, fanatic militarist and authoritarian will be our ethics, imperial will be our government type, and our civics will be warrior culture and efficient bureaucracy. Next is pretty simple: your empire name, in this case the Roman Empire. Then your flag, feel free to try all the designs, and finally how your ships look. This is purely cosmetic, so feel free to choose the one that you like the most. And finally, we need to choose what our first ruler looks like. This section is divided in 2. This one is purely cosmetic, and then in this other one you have to choose your leader type and traits. Leader traits are, well, traits that your leader will acquire while they serve your empire. Meanwhile, there are 4 leader types: governor, scientist, general or admiral. While choosing your leader traits, bear in mind 2 things. While in this screen you can only see positive traits, there are also negative traits that your leaders will gain at random, and that if you don't have Galactic Paragons enabled, you won't be able to choose which traits your leader gains. So, with all of that done, if we hit next, we will see the empire summary page again, and if we press play, not before pressing save, so we can use this empire again in the future, we will arrive at the options menu. I know all of these options can be overwhelming, but the best thing to do when starting is not touching anything but the difficulty and making sure Iron Man mode isn't on. A small footnote here: these settings aren't the default ones, they are the ones that I play with, so don't worry if they aren't the same as yours. And now we can finally press play. Now, I believe the worst thing about a Paradox Run strategy game is looking at the game for the first time, because there are a lot of numbers that you don't understand. So I will censor everything that I haven't explained, so you don't instantly collapse to the ground due to overstimulation. The first thing we see is one final summary of our empire, as well as a little more history depending on which origin we have chosen. Now, the thing that takes the most attention on your stream is the map, because if you know anything about Paradox games, is that they are played on maps. But this doesn't really look like a map. This is because this isn't a map, it's a system. Here you can see every celestial body that makes up a system, as well as how many resources they produce, and all of the ships stationed here. If I uncensor this part of your screen, you will be able to see your flag, your empire name, the system that you are now on, and a galaxy bottom. If we press this bottom or press M, we will be taken to the map. Here you can see some more info about the system. First, you can clearly see all the ships stationed here. These ships are construction ships, these ones are science ships, and these are military ships. This icon here shows us the starbase level. For your empire to control a system, you will need a starbase. There are a total of 5 starbase levels, and we will always start with a level 2 starbase. I will explain starbases to you later, but now notice these lines coming out of the system. These are hyperlanes, or basically where your ships can go. No matter how close 2 systems are, if they don't have a hyperlane between them, You can travel from one to another. Now, on this corner of your screen, there are 4 buttons that you will never use, so don't worry about them. Up here is the time, speed, and soundtrack screen. Down here are more buttons that you will never use, but above them are some very useful ones. These are the different map modes. They are very intuitive to use, so feel free to change between them when you feel like it. And now, on the upper bar is where your resources are displayed. This is energy credits, they are basically your money. This is minerals, they are your cement, as you need them to build things, and for some reason to train armies. This is your food, pretty self-explanatory. This is your consumer goods, which basically is how many iPhones you can make. These are your alloys. Everything, and if you take something out of this tutorial, is this: everything that you make in this game is with the intention of gaining more alloys per month. They are what allows you to grow your military, so they are very, very important. To make both alloys and consumer goods, you need minerals, so be careful to not run out of those. If you put your mouse on top of any of these, the game will tell you how many you are making and how many you are losing, and in what things. Here you can find influence, you need it to grow your empire basically, and this is your unity. I explain why you need it later. Both influence and unity can seem kinda abstract, but think of them like how many people love or fear your empire abroad, and in how much culture you produce. Here is science, which is probably the second most important resource in the game. The higher this number, the faster you will advance in research. These are your rare resources, don't worry about them, just make sure you don't have a deficit once you find one, and this is how many people are living in your empire. The last 3 are all caps: leader cap, starbase cap, and fleet cap. You can go over them, just bear in mind that they will become more expensive the more above your capacity you go. And finally, empire size. This is a very difficult number to control, so in your first playthrough I wouldn't really worry about it, just know that the lower the better. Explaining how all of these resources interact one with one another will take me a while, and Cedar Games already made a beautiful video explaining it, so go watch it if you want to know all the details. Now, on your right, you can see the outliner. This shows you basically every last piece of info about your empire, but the only thing you will be using it is to manage your planets. If you click in one, you will see this tab. It looks like a lot, but it isn't, believe me. This is info about what type of planet this is your planet's governor, this is stability, population, crime, houses, services, jobs available, and people without a job, which can all be resumed to don't let any of these numbers become red. In this tab, you don't touch anything, this tab is useless. Here is the building queue of what you are building, this is the commercial value, a sort of GDP, this is what the planet consumes and produces. And the important part, districts and buildings. They allow you to make things. Every district is self-explanatory, agricultural districts make food, mining districts minerals, and buildings are for more specialized things. Remember that districts and building slots are a limited resource on each planet, so you will need to manage them according to your needs. Also, if for any reason you lose a building slot when you have them occupied, the building will turn into ruins. You could call it an urbanistic failure if you want. And the only thing you need to know about these tabs is that here you can see your population growing, and here you can make armies. Now, if you close this tab and bring your mouse to the left, you will unlock a lot of other tabs. Briefly explain, tab to see what's going on. Here you can see your government and make more policies. This is your list of friends or enemies. I will explain this on a second. Same for you. Here you can see all your leaders as well as recruit new ones. This tab is useless. This other one is useless for now. This one is also useless. Here you can make claims on other empire systems spending influence. Here you can buy and sell resources. And this tab, whatever you do, and listen to me here, whatever you do not open it until you have at least 100 hours in this game. Okay? This is reserved only to people that know what they are doing, and neither you nor me know what we are doing. Also, if you press this icon, you can rearrange the tabs, which is probably why yours and mine are in a different order. By the way, in this area of the screen, you will see the notifications tab. If you press on them, they will tell you what they do, so you shouldn't have any difficulties with this. In this case, let's press this one that leads us to the research tab. So, the technology tab. Research is divided in 3 fields: physics, society, and engineering. To quickly understand this, vision this. Physics discovers electricity, engineering makes computers, and society the internet. When you select something to research, you will be able to choose between different technologies. If a tech is purple, that means that it's a rare one, and you may have to wait again if you don't select it to research. And now, finally, the society tab. Here is where you will mainly spend your unity. In this area, you will be able to select which traditions you want your empire to follow. Every tradition will give you certain bonuses and add special effects to your game. And there are more traditions than tradition slots, so be careful which ones you choose. Usually, discovery and expansion are the safest two to pick first. Before explaining how to grow your empire, let me quickly tell you about the Starbase menu. Up here, you can upgrade or downgrade the Starbase level. Modules are buildings that you can build more than once in every Starbase, while buildings can only be built once. In defenses, you can improve the Starbase defenses. On Army Builder, you can recruit armies, and on the Shipyard is where you can build new ships. And finally, to grow your empire, you will need to fully explore a system with a science ship, and then select a construction ship and build a new starbase. If you want to colonize a planet, build a colony ship and select the planet you want to colonize. And that should cover all the basics. Feel free to unpause the game when you want. Of course, there are still a lot of things that I haven't explained yet, but I think your experience will be better if you discover them by yourself. Furthermore, you should be able to survive with all of this information, but even if you want to know more, I'll link the Wiki's beginner's guide and some tutorials that I think are very useful in the description. Nothing more from my part. Thank you very much for watching and have a fantastic day. Also, don't forget to like the video if you found it helpful or leave a doubt on the comments. I would love to answer beginners' doubts.